Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Stephanie and I'm a physical therapist. Today I want to go over some of my favorite hip flexor strengthening exercises. The hip flexors are a pretty popular topic, and a lot of times they feel super tight, or they are super tight just because we sit a lot. So even if I'm sitting in this position, those hip flexor muscles, they come from the spine and cross the hip joint to attach to the femur here. And so their job is to do this motion, to flex the hip, to bring the knee up towards the chest. And since we're sitting a lot in a chair or in this position, those muscles can get shortened and they can feel tight, or they can actually be tight. But a lot of times that feeling of tightness is not actually tightness, it's actually weakness. So you can stretch those hip flexors all you want, and sometimes the tightness just doesn't go away. And that's because they're not overly tight, they're just undertrained. So those muscles aren't, we don't work them enough and they're not strong enough. And so because they're really weak, then they feel tight. So a good example is if your bicep muscle was super tight and your elbow was bent like this and you just couldn't extend your arm. If you tried to reach down and pick up your purse or a bag of groceries or anything off the floor, it'd be really difficult with your arm stuck in this position. So because of that, the muscle just doesn't work properly. It's weak. Obviously, you couldn't pick up the bag, so those muscles, they're weak. Same thing goes with the hip flexors. If they're super tight or they feel super tight, it's just because they're not working properly and they're weaker than they should be. So if you start working on mobility and start working on strength, then you can get them to move throughout their full range of motion, and then they won't feel tight anymore and they'll feel much better and be able to work like they should. So we're going to go through a few of my favorite exercises. I'm going to show you some lying on your back. I'm going to show you some sitting and some kneeling. There's a ton of hip flexor exercises, but these are some of my favorites. All you need is, I'm going to use a loop band like this, and then I'm going to use 2 yoga blocks. And if you don't have the yoga blocks, you can get some on Amazon, but you can also just use other objects that are kind of similar in shape or size. Okay, so we're going to start by lying on our back. And you can do this on a yoga mat on the floor. You can do this on a bed, wherever is most comfortable, or if you have a table. So the first one you're going to do is straighten one leg and keep the other knee bent. That just kind of helps your back a little bit. You're going to keep your knee straight and just lift your leg up and then back down. So you're just going to lift it up about even with that other knee. And nice and slow, you want to keep your knee, kind of your quad flexed as you lift up and down slowly. And you want to do about 2 to 3 sets of 10, and then you'll switch to the other leg and lift up and down here. Same thing, 2 to 3 sets of 10. Okay, then for the next one, we'll add a band for this. We're going to stay on our back, but you're going to place a band around your feet, lie on your back again, and you're going to bring a knee up to your chest as high as you can. Then bring the other knee up, and nice and slow, so you don't want to let the band just snap back. So up slow, down slow. And you want to do about 2 to 3 sets of 10. Just up and down. If the band feels too hard, you can get a lighter band, or you can just start without a band. To make this harder, you can lift your feet in the air and do this. So extend one knee and then extend the other knee. And same thing, do about 2 to 3 sets of 10. Okay, then we'll take off the band. And the next one we're going to do is you're going to cross one leg like this and put your foot right here over the other knee. You're just going to bring this leg up as high as you can towards your chest and then back down, just nice and slow. Just up and as far as you can. Obviously, this leg is going to restrict this leg a little bit, but you're still working that hip flexor on the side. So 2 to 3 sets of 10. Switch sides, same thing, cross over, lift up, and back down. And again, this is working this hip flexor. You may also feel a good stretch kind of in this hip, in this piriformis area. Just up and down, 2 to 3 sets of 10. Okay, then we're gonna go ahead and sit up. And this one you need the yoga blocks for, but it's fairly easy to use whatever objects you have on hand. So this is called the seated hip flexion hurdle. So I'm gonna show you on one leg and then we'll do it on the other leg. So, and to make this easier or more difficult, you can use a smaller block, smaller object, and then you can also make it taller, and that'll be a little bit harder because you're gonna have to lift higher. So you're gonna sit like this. You can have your hands on the ground to start, but to make it more challenging, also you can put your hands across your chest, put them out here, and you're just gonna lift up and over both of the hurdles. And then you're gonna come back and back. And if you have a little bit of cramping in your hip flexors, that's pretty common, pretty normal. You may just need to do it a little bit slower, or you can lean back a little bit to start. Sometimes these are tough to start with, so you just want to make sure that your hip flexor is working, but it's not cramping too bad while you're doing this. So do that probably 2 sets of 10, maybe a little bit more if you want to, and then you'll switch and do the same thing with the other leg. And if you want to, if you have 4 objects, you can lay 4 objects out and you can kind of alternate back and forth. So you can do 2 there and then 2 with the other leg, and then go back and do 2 with this leg. Okay, then we are going to do a couple of kneeling ones. And so first, we're going to use these yoga blocks again. So I'm going to put these next to me, and these are just kind of for some support. So if you don't need these, that's okay. If you have something else you want to hold on to, that's okay too. You're going to put a leg straight out in front of you. And this one is a pretty tough one. So if you haven't mastered the other ones yet, I wouldn't do this one quite yet. So what you're going to do is hold on to these blocks and just lift your heel up off the ground. And if you can't lift, then start with the other ones. Gradually work on building up that hip flexor strength, that mobility, and then you can get to this one. You just lift and back down, lift and back down. For this one, I would recommend maybe trying to do 5 to 8, and you can repeat that 2 times if you want to. I wouldn't quite do 3 sets of 10 because that's a lot on this one. And so do the other leg, just lift up, and same thing, about 5 to 8. If you want to repeat that 2 times, you can. Okay, we have one more with the yoga block. So this one, we're gonna do kind of a half kneeling position. And from this position, you can use any block or any object. You can use one really small to start, or I'll show you how to do it without the object if you're not ready for that. So you can hold on to something if you need to, or put your hands on your waist. You're just gonna lift your foot up and over the object, up and over the object. And so obviously if that's too tough, but you still want to try this, just lift your foot off the ground and over a little bit, off the ground and over a little bit. And then you can gradually work your way up to higher things to bring your foot over. And then you'll switch to the other side, same thing, put an object there or don't put an object there. And you probably don't want to put it, I put mine too far over. So you want to make sure you're going kind of out away from your body. So you're going to come up and over and up and over. You want to go slow. So if you feel like you can't do it too slow and controlled, just start without that object and then gradually work up to it. Okay, last one I'm going to show you. We're going to do a hip cars exercise. And so this one, I'm going to show you without holding on, but obviously you can hold on if you need to. Basically, you're going to just rotate your foot up to this half kneeling position and slowly rotate it back to the tall kneeling. So up and back. And this one, I would recommend doing 5 to 8 repetitions. And you can just do that once, or you can repeat it 2 times. And then you'll do the same thing with the other side, just back and forth. And again, hold on to something if you need to. This is kind of a progression. But those are all great ways to strengthen those hip flexors, to get them moving through their full range of motion so that you don't feel that tightness anymore. And you can do those every day if you want to. Maybe pick one or two to do every day, or you can do all of them. And you can do them every day, or you can skip a day in between each one of them. But do those, and your hip flexors should feel a lot better.